Good morning, West Ham. I can't believe I have been doing this for a while, and that's the first time ever I thought about saying that. Russ and the West Ham Network. Hope you're safe and well. If you're around here, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share, give it a bloody good subscribe. Hope you're safe and well. Happy Tuesday indeed. Now, I am having a little bit of not a rant, but it's not really a rant. It's a chat. Thinking out aloud, and it's about who could buy West Ham. And the reason why it's more prevalent is because of the race for Man United. And I think basically the loser of that race then has a few billion quid in their pocket to look for other alternatives. And we were led to believe that both Ratcliffe and also the Qatarian bid were both looking at West Ham as a potential runner up, basically. Also, I think Spurs as well was another side they were looking at. Now, for anyone who's not aware of what's going on, I think it was like November last year. The Glaziers said they were basically going to be selling up, and then opened up bids for potential new owners. And in essence, two came forward. You've got the Jim Ratcliffe bid, the creator of INEOS, Ineos, chemical company. And then you've got the Qatarian bid, the Qatarian investment fund, headed up by Sheikh Yazim. So you've got these two sort of conflicting bids, two very different bids as well, in that the Qatarian bid is very much we're taking over, and we're going to take full control of Man United. And it involves, from a fan's perspective, it's more interesting than the Ratcliffe deal, in all honesty, because it means full control. The Glazers are out; they've got money to reinvest, money to put in the training funds and all that type of stuff. Modernising Old Trafford as well, which needs a good old lick of paint at least, and all the money owed there, it's all part of the plan as well. So I think it was £620 million in debt. The Glazers have managed to sort them out. So that's all going to be cleared and stuff like that. The Ratcliffe deal is a bit different. He's basically looking to acquire 50% controlling stake, more than 50% of Man United. So it would allow United's existing executive, like co-chairs, like the Glazers, to maintain about 20% of the club. And so probably less likely to be well received by the fan base, but internally the Glazers still get some dollar, but they still keep hold of some of that sweet Man United stake. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between, in terms of what's happened. I think they've had like 3 rounds. The last round was, I think, submitted on Friday, the third round, in terms of valuations, and I think they're pretty much both around the $6 billion sort of limits in terms of what they're both offering. So it's very much, whether the Glazers want total out, or whether they still want to keep some sort of stake, and they prefer the Ratcliffe bid. Whatever happens, I think it means that West Ham could be in the shop window. I think it was it on Friday? I think Sheikh Yazim said on Friday. I've got it somewhere. Where is it? Sheikh Yazim, according to Manchester Evening News, he was concerned that the Glazers would not sell Man United to him because he wanted full control. And obviously that could be good news for West Ham. As I said, around $6 million, I believe, is the asking price. And as we know, if they don't want to play ball with the Qatarian bid, then we know from a fact that the Qatarians are desperate to get involved in Premier League. They've seen other, countries within the UAE in terms of investment funds getting involved, and they want that to happen as well. And he may well switch his attentions back to West Ham. So he's Sheikh himself. Sheikh Yazim is a member of the Qatarian royal family. He's also chairman of the Islamic Bank of Qatar, the BIQ, and that's what's heading up. His father was Prime Minister of Qatar for like 5 years, I think, as well. And he's apparently got a net worth of himself of around £275 billion. So it's just, you can't fathom how much money that is it? Now, it could well be exaggerated in all honesty, but he's got a couple of quid in his pocket, let's be honest. He ain't gonna be worried whether he's gonna go, go large on his filet fish. He's gonna go large in it and not worry about it. He might even, upgrade to an apple pie. Who knows? So for me, it's interesting because I think also we've heard that Jim Ratcliffe is desperate to get into the Premier League as well, and there was apparently West Ham were an option for him as well. Although I think, in all honesty, I think. I mean, if Glazers are deciding, they're probably going to go for the Ratcliffe deal because they still want some money, but they want to keep a stake. Man United they could zoom up the title and the Champions League, and then their percentages will be worth even more. I mean, the Sheikh himself, he's got more wealth than Kudrinski and Sullivan put together. And if we're ever going to make any kind of significant progress, and challenge that top elites, it's going to be mega rich owners needing to take over. You look at Newcastle, how they broke into the top four after the Saudi investment fund took over basically from Mike Ashley. And you think also, the land around Stratford is all being built, is all being sold off to Middle Eastern corporations and stuff like that. It's something which I think is going to happen. I can genuinely see it. If Man United go with Ratcliffe, I could see Sheikh Yazim not turning up the next day with a suitcase full of cash and just say, "Hand me over the keys." But it could happen. Football's a funny old game, as Jimmy Greaves, God rest his soul, would say, and I think it's. I can see it. West Ham are, and to be honest, Spurs in the same. And obviously Spurs as well. They're the next ones ready for investment. They really are. You've seen it also around. The likes of Bournemouth have been bought out by American personal funds. You've got Burnley, like Dude Perfect. They've got like a controlling stake in Burnley. Chelsea with Todd Broley, and the amount of investment they've done still couldn't beat West Ham though. You look at Villa. All these clubs are looking at major investment, and I think West Ham is probably the next one on the list. In all honesty, particularly having won European glory last year, and obviously back in Europe again this year, it does make it a very interesting and attractive prospect. A club in East London. Obviously, we don't own our own ground, and any investment would need significant money to either secure that ground and redevelop it, or look at elsewhere and buy, sort of build a stadium, which might necessarily put us slightly behind Spurs because obviously they have their own stadium. But if it wasn't for Spurs, we would have had that stadium. If it weren't for him, Levy and Barry Hearn kicking off, we would have had that stadium ourselves. But anyway, that's for another time. But let me know what you think, because I think obviously there's the practicality of it. Like, could it happen? I could see it happening. But also there's the other side, the morality of it as well, and we've seen sort of in other sort of areas. I hate expression sports washing, but we have in terms of the Saudi Pro League and stuff like that, and there's rejection to that, but also there's players are more happy to take the money. I think I think part of it's a really interesting debate. I think in terms of it, I think I think the only way we could even start to compete with the amount of money that the likes of City and whatnot have got is a massive takeover and a massive dump of cash. And Sullivan's not going to do that. Kudrinski's not going to do it. He's a silent partner. He didn't do it. He hasn't done it with Sparta Prague. He's happy. He likes to be a silent partner. He likes to He's got 10% in Sainsbury's or something like 5% in Royal Mail or the other way around. He buys investments in play which he can just keep ticking over and builds up his portfolio and builds up his wealth. I think you'd want someone who's wants to see it as a bit of a vanity project as well. So I think I think someone like the South, someone like Newcastle, they've done it slightly differently, I think. But you look at someone like Man City, and it was very much not a vanity, but they literally the first thing they did was went out and bought Robinho. Do you remember the first thing they did? And they continued to invest heavily into the side. Even Todd, Todd's gone out and bought like a billion, ridiculous amount of money in terms of what they bought in terms of transfers. You've got, Newcastle slightly different because they were sort of slightly hampered by poor management of their funds beforehand in terms of what they could sell, but still they want to. If you see the All or Nothing documentary, they want to be number one. They want to win the title. They want to win the Champions League. Same as PSG. Who do PSG got? They've went out and got Neymar. They got Messi. It's very similar to. Do you remember when we had there was? I mean, when you had Abramovich originally take over Chelsea, there was potential, and I know obviously what's name took over, took a controlling stake of Everton as well. Now I think it's in Russia, they literally had loads of all the big oligarchs basically had their own ice hockey side, and it was almost like ours is better. We could put more stars in ours than yours. A bit like what's happening in the Saudi League at the moment. You've got obviously the 4 own PIF clubs, and the rest are just trying to, we can flash more cash than you and that type of thing. And that's just made everything crazy. The fact that someone like Jordan Henderson's on £700,000 a week is ridiculous in my eyes. But I think that's what we need. That's what we need. But it's look, at the end of the day, it's pie in the sky talking at the moment because we could put this out and Man United could accept the bid from the Qatari royal family tomorrow or later today. But then Jim Ratcliffe might want to come along. But I think if Jim Ratcliffe comes along, he'd want a controlling stake rather than full takeover. So he would, buy but would. I don't know. Would they sell the percentages to him? Would they sell the shares to him? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Just a bit of a brain dump, really. Occasionally, it's good to talk. But as Bob Hoskins once said, it was good to talk. But let me know what you think. I think it's fascinating. There's so much. There's so much sort of in the air. Obviously we assume that obviously the embarrassment clause has gone. It went at March, but then obviously sadly Mr. Gold then passed, and obviously sadly Jacqueline passed as well. So we all assumed they were going to up sticks. Well, some people thought we was going to up sticks and bring in a new owner. Then Krasinski had come in and thought that's it. He's going to take full takeover. There was no indication that he was going to do that, apart from whether to get involved or not at a decent level. And I just think there's, we should go get an NFL player. Tom Brady went and bought a controlling stake of Birmingham, didn't he? Birmingham City the other day. But it does seem, obviously, with the whole Wrexham thing, that the Premier League is becoming a real hotbed of, and British football in general, a hotbed of, getting in foreign investors. And I think we're the next one to go forward with it. And I think the utopian view of our West Ham owner, of being a West Ham fan, I think that's gone now. It's now, football has been about money, and it's been about money for the last 20 years, and increasingly more so. Even more so, I think, in the last sort of 6 months with the Saudi Pro League coming in. I mean, it's about getting the right owner at the right time. And I think, again, watch that All or Nothing thing. Amanda, she's fantastic. She's a fantastic chairperson. The way she and co-owner, she owns part of the club as well. The way she interacts with Eddie, the way she interacts with the sides, it's like a project, and it's a project they all seem to be put in the right way. Sometimes I think we have different, particularly even at, not necessarily at board level, but even at the management level. You've got Moyes and Steidon doing this. They seem to be a little bit closer. Then you've got Sullivan. It doesn't seem to be a clear path, and I think sometimes if there was a full takeover, then everyone's got to be on the same page or they're out, innit? And that's it. Anyway, rant over. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye bye.